In the Star Wars universe, drugs were quite the complex field. In a galaxy with such a diverse array of sentient species with equally diverse biochemistries, a substance that was innocuous to one species could be poison to another and a powerful intoxicant to a third. Perhaps no species illustrated this better than the Arcona. The Arcona were a fascinating species from an equally fascinating star system, and though they had a long history with galactic civilization, they were perhaps best known for a unique quirk of their biology. For them, simple table salt was a powerful and extremely addictive narcotic.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Before we talk about the Arcona themselves, let's talk about their homeworld. The Arcona came from a planet they called Cona, an arid jungle world with a thoroughly alien environment. Cona lacked an axial tilt and was hot from the poles to the equator, with a dense atmosphere primarily composed of nitrogen, hydrogen, and ammonia. This atmosphere was completely unbreathable to humans who required full body environment suits to survive on Cona's surface. Oxygen only existed in pockets in Cona's crust, and thus water was extremely rare on the planet, found only in the roots and gastric pods of the planet's alien flora. Cona was a mix of barren deserts and lush alien jungles, which thrived despite the planet's lack of water. All told, Cona was a deeply alien planet, but its curiosities weren't limited to its makeup and flora. Cona was also unique in that the star it orbited, Tekero, was a blue giant. In both the real world and the Star Wars universe, blue giants are rare, but more importantly, they live very short lives. Blue stars in general burn extremely hot, and as a consequence of this, they burn through their fuel really fast. Both main sequence blue stars, namely blue type O's and blue-white type B's, and post-main sequence blue giants have very short lifetimes on stellar scales. At most, they only burn for about 10 million years. Even relative to the history of galactic civilization, that's a long time, but it's the blink of an eye for stars, and more importantly, it's the blink of an eye for planets. Every single blue star that existed in the universe when the Earth formed had burned out before Earth's crust even finished solidifying. It took tens of millions of years for Earth's surface to become stable. It took billions of additional years for complex life to emerge. For this reason, the very existence of planets around any kind of blue star, never mind blue giants, is incredibly unlikely. That makes the existence of Cona, which not only had a solid crust but also sentient life, highly anomalous. Even if we leave science behind and return to Star Wars, the existence of the Arcona is still a bit weird. As we'll discuss shortly, the Arcona needed water to survive, but water was extremely rare on Cona, only forming as a byproduct of the life processes of its plants. How the Arcona even came to exist in such a hostile environment is a mystery. As befitting their unusual circumstances, the Arcona were a unique species, if still humanoid in form. They were scaleless reptilians with anvil-shaped heads and thick, dark-colored skin. Their fingers were tipped with sharp claws, and they had large eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. Despite the size of their eyes, however, their sense of sight was pretty poor. Their eyes were like those of insects, composed of thousands of tiny photoreceptors that only saw vague shapes. To help them perceive the world, they had an additional sensory organ set between their eyes. Often mistaken for a nose, this organ helped them see heat patterns. They did have olfactory organs, but these were located in their tongues, like in many reptiles. In contrast to their sense of sight, an Arcona's sense of smell was extremely keen. Naturally, Arcona were capable of breathing ammonia, as their homeworld had an ammonia-based atmosphere and they required ammonia to survive. However, they didn't have to breathe ammonia to survive. Arcona were perfectly capable of breathing the oxygen-nitrogen atmospheres of most inhabited worlds, and they simply had to take regular ammonia supplements to survive in such conditions. It's unclear what their bodies needed ammonia for, but as Arcona couldn't survive for more than a day or two without it, it was clearly pretty important. The Arconia had a complex and highly collectivist culture. Generally, Arconia didn't think of themselves as individuals and preferred to put the group first, even to the point of referring to themselves as we, even when they were alone. Despite this group-minded approach to life, Arcona did have distinct personalities and names, and they didn't see their species as homogeneous. The Arcona had a highly complex and drawn-out courtship process, as marriage was considered a commitment to raising children, and Arcona were thus careful to ensure that they chose a fitting partner. Child rearing and homemaking was typically left to male Arcona, as female Arcona had a tendency toward thrill-seeking and reckless behavior. Arconan society was based on large extended families called nests, which typically lived underground. The Arconan central government was called the Grand Nest, based in the city of Tilkaros, and it was considered socialist by the outside galaxy, reflecting the community-centric culture of its people. The Arconan culture was based on mining, as Cona was rich in a variety of valuable metals and minerals. Typically, the Arcona traded their mineral resources, or the right to mine parts of their planet for shipments of water, which made life on arid Cona much easier. Before their discovery by Republic scouts, the Arcona weren't a very advanced civilization. Even after their discovery by the Republic, technology wasn't all that big of a deal to them, though they still incorporated Republic tech into their nests and way of life. That said, many Arcona were very enthusiastic about exploring the wider galaxy, which led to Cona joining the Republic and large numbers of Arcona immigrating to other worlds. Entire nests uprooted themselves to explore the galaxy, and within a few millennia, Arcona were one of the galaxy's more widespread species. Many Arcona became bounty hunters or Jedi, though none were ever recorded as joining the Sith. For thousands of years, contact with the outside galaxy generally benefited the Arcona, who were able to leverage their planet's resources to import all the water they needed to survive. But in 50 BBY, relations with the outside galaxy soured a little after it was discovered that table salt was a highly addictive and highly damaging hallucinogen to the Arcona. Once this became known, salt addiction spread like a wildfire across Cona, a problem worsened by opportunistic traders who imported tons of it to sell to addicts. Nearly an entire generation of Arcona was crippled by the addiction, and it was only through draconian import laws and a concerted effort on the part of the Republic and Grand Nest that salt addiction was prevented from becoming an epidemic. Nonetheless, salt addiction remained an issue for Arcona for decades to come. Salt smuggling rings regularly had to be broken up by the Jedi, and Arcona that lived off-world could easily be exposed to the stuff, as it was used as a common seasoning by humans and many other species. The problem was never fully solved, and Cona relied heavily on the Jedi Order and Republic authorities to keep the Arconan homeworld insulated from this issue. For the most part, however, the many off-world Arcona were left to fend for themselves. Salt addiction was thus very common among Arcona in the galaxy at large, such that many beings thought that all Arcona had golden eyes, when in fact their natural eye color was green, and gold eyes were a product of salt addiction. The Arcona supported the Galactic Republic during the Clone Wars, in no small part due to how much the Republic had helped stop the initial salt addiction crisis. One Arcona, a bounty hunter, even helped train clones for the Grand Army of the Republic. After the end of the Clone Wars, the Arcona were initially supporters of the Empire, as the Empire promised to unify the galaxy, and this was something the Arcona were very supportive of. But over the course of the Imperial era, support for the Empire rapidly waned among the Arcona, and they ended up joining the New Republic. So that's our look at the Arcona, one of the most interesting species in the Star Wars universe. But what do you think? Which drug is worse, death sticks or salt? Let us know in the comment section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.